I want to thank those who pointed out the issues with the mic in my last video, and rest assured it won't happen again. I found a very complex solution. A while back, YouTuber Super Wolf launched a series of videos about classic pop culture icons who are distorted by the internet, particularly The Simpsons and Sonic the Hedgehog, and I found those two videos interesting to the point where I stole their title structure for an extra 4 views. However, there is a character that has been around for way longer than those two franchises and has arguably been distorted even more. This is the bizarre modern reality of Garfield. Garfield's inception was in a 1978 comic strip. As I already mentioned, this was much earlier than that of Sonic and The Simpsons, but there is another key aspect that separates Garfield from those two franchises. Both Sonic the Hedgehog and The Simpsons were symbols of counterculture at some point. Sonic took on Nintendo's monopoly over the gaming industry, while The Simpsons took on the broader norms of American culture at the time. Garfield, however, is the complete opposite. In a 1982 Washington Post interview, Garfield creator Jim Davis gave some insight into the thought process that goes into each strip of the comic. In particular, he brings up how he wants to make the comic as inclusive as possible and does so by deliberately avoiding any cultural references and by having simple art style. So while Sonic and The Simpsons challenged some aspect of their respective industry, Garfield instead appealed to what the interviewer described as the lowest common denominator. And Jim Davis' strategy clearly worked, as his Garfield comic strip became a massive success, established itself as a staple of the newspaper funnies, and spawned various adaptations and a shit ton of merchandise. This would go on for decades, but at the beginning of the 21st century, everything would change. See, there was an obscure invention called the internet which had a tremendous impact on society, completely revolutionizing every aspect of day-to-day life. And Garfield was no different. In 2008, an Irish technology manager by the name of Dan Walsh created a webcomic based on Garfield. However, there was a twist. Walsh took old Garfield strips and completely eliminated the titular character for the use of photo manipulation, changing the focus to the character John Arbuckle. This completely changed the tone of the comic. Interactions that were intended as quirky banter were morphed into what the comic's website describes as a journey deep into the mind of an isolated young everyman as he fights a losing battle against loneliness and depression in a quiet American suburb.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Garfield minus Garfield was Garfield's first major outing on the internet, but it wouldn't be his last. Ever since 2008, meme culture started to develop, albeit in a significantly more primitive form than what there is now. Like any well-known property, there were several memes about the Garfield franchise, but it wasn't a substantial amount in comparison to other properties. But eventually, meme culture would shift to become more ironic, and Garfield memes would explode into popularity. It's unknown when exactly Garfield became the icon of meme culture that he is now, or what exactly was the catalyst. It's impossible to say for sure, but I believe there are two separate events related to the Garfield franchise that served as major turning points. The first was the release of the game Garfield Kart on both Steam and the Nintendo 3DS. Garfield Kart is what is referred to as shovelware, a low-quality video game that was churned out to make a quick buck and often features a recognizable brand. Garfield Kart immediately received negative reviews from critics who quickly forgot about the game and moved on to the actual AAA releases. These critics put out the hate on Garfield Kart, but the real Garfield fans knew what was up. After all, the game was released on Steam as forum for serious and intelligent discussion. These fans made sure the game had a positive score on every website and gave detailed refutations to all of the critics' claims. There was even a massive amount of Let's Players who made videos showcasing the game's strengths. While the release of Garfield Kart was important for building Garfield's current reputation, another major release from before was just as important, if not more.
Stuffed in your face as usual.
I gotta have a good meal.
Garfield, you fat cat. You are so big and fat. Why are you so fat?
The masterpiece of animation that your eyes just witnessed is called Garfield, and it was published on the Red Pilot Sun YouTube channel. Red Pilot Sun was a channel dedicated to shitposting, which is a type of content that the Garfield video embodies. The Garfield video was a parody of the Garfield franchise where all art was crudely drawn and all dialogue was done using a text-to-speech software. Garfield quickly went viral and inspired other channels to make similar videos. Both the Garfield Kart game and the Garfield video inspired people to have a more cynical radical take on the Garfield franchise, but in different ways. On one hand, Garfield Kart was a shameless cash grab by Paws Inc. that put the Garfield franchise's commercial nature in the spotlight. On the other hand, the Garfield video's crude nature connected the Garfield franchise to shitposting. These two catalysts, as well as plenty of other factors, eventually resulted in Garfield gaining his status as a meme.
Let me put it in a language you can understand.
Don't do it, Garfield. That's our pet dog, OD.
You're going into orbit, you stupid mutt.
But Garfield didn't just spawn a meme, he spawned an entire fandom that is ubiquitous on nearly every social media website. Countless popular YouTubers such as Brandaniel, Haydox, Quentin Reviews, and Jax Films have come out as massive Garfield fans. The latter even wore a Garfield costume while giving an acceptance speech for an award he won.
Finally, they will take me seriously.
Many fanfictions have been written about Garfield, crossing him over with all sorts of fictional universes. Some members of the fandom have taken things a step further and labeled themselves as Garfsexuals, people who are sexually attracted to Garfield. Also, there's a time that Jon Arbuckle drank dog semen, but we don't talk about that.
Have a cup of coffee, John. Why, thanks. Don't mind if I do.
Congratulations, Mr. Arbuckle. You are going to give birth to a fine, healthy litter of puppies.
Okay. He graced my litter.
Additionally, many social media accounts have been created to exclusively post Garfield-related content. There's several Twitter bots dedicated to Garfield, whether it's the one that posts a random strip every 2 hours, or the one that does the same thing but with Garfield smoking a pipe as the last panel. Another person who capitalized on this opportunity was comedian Wyatt Duncan, who created a Twitter account dedicated to fan art of the series, as well as a YouTube channel dedicated to reviewing every episode of the Garfield cartoon. However, the Garfield fandom would start to take a darker turn. A channel by the name of Lasagna Cat dedicated to Garfield parodies was created in 2007 but was eventually put on an indefinite hiatus. But a little under a decade later, the channel returned with more content. These videos took a pre-existing Garfield comic and acted it out in full before ending it with some type of twist. And on February 27, 2017, Lasagna Cat had a 5-hour grand finale using the results from a survey given to viewers. While the first 4 hours were nothing out of the ordinary, the last couple of minutes took a dramatic shift in tone. The video ends on a dark street with Jon Arbuckle significantly aged and Garfield dead before the former eventually meets the same fate. After this happens, Jon Arbuckle is reborn in an incredibly gory fashion with a voice describing Jon as something from the darkness and even a curse on humanity. This shocking end to a previously innocuous series opened a floodgate to other darker interpretations of the Garfield franchise. A lesser example was an image of the character with the text, "You are not immune to propaganda." This image spread just as easily as the other Garfield memes and has even been used in various political contexts. Garfield himself has even somehow become a political symbol used by every side of the spectrum. But I would be remiss if I were to forget one of the most popular interpretations of Garfield, the I'm Sorry John version. In autumn of 2018, horror artist William Burke drew a monstrous and malformed version of the character. He then created other interpretations of this concept, invoking all sorts of horrifying creatures such as spiders and centipedes. These drawings spread all over the internet and even resulted in the creation of the I'm Sorry John subreddit, where anyone can post their horrifying interpretations of Garfield as well as other characters. While I'm Sorry John and the various other creations of the Garfield fandom may have strayed far away from the original version of a character, in a way, this new online version of Garfield achieved Jim Davis's vision of a character that everyone can relate to. The canonical version of Garfield attempted to meet this goal by being broad enough that anyone can relate to it. In other words, it's trying to be nothing. However, the internet version of Garfield takes the opposite approach and has become everything. There is an infinite amount of Garfields that can take on any of a person's traits, no matter how narrow. Internet Garfield can be merged with any meme, can cross over with any other franchise, can become any unimaginable horror, and can even represent any radical political ideology, no matter how obscure. And there's something beautiful about that.